Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining the webinar today, and we are going to be talking about some more advanced configurations over core controls. Um, the thing is, in our basic level technical training, we already talked about inbound call routes and outbound call routes, and we have explained that this is actually the core function of any IPPBX system, because it decides how you to handle incoming calls and how to send out calls to the public network. So, um, but we haven't covered everything in the call routing settings, and we haven't talked about some more advanced features of call routing rules because that can be quite complicated, and it requires certain levels of understanding over uh, our PBX system. But this is, as we have mentioned, this is a more advanced technical training courses, so we will be talking about those things. Firstly, we will be looking at inbound routes. You already know what inbound routes are mainly do, so I don't have to repeat that. But there are a few things that we haven't mentioned. The first one is DID. Okay, so a DID can be very useful in many cases. Well, if you need me to explain this, well, DID is direct inward dial. Basically, that's a kind of service that you get from a from the trunk service provider. So, um, other than the major number given by them along with the trunks, whatever kind of trunks it is, A1 or SIP, um, they will also give you uh, a bunch of other numbers. Well, those numbers will be working as what we call a DID number. So they are both attached to the same trunk, but you can actually assign them to a specific destination. So anybody in the public network who dial those DID numbers will be sent directly to those destinations. So this is a very interesting way to more efficiently use your use your trunks. Let's take, well, for example, we Yeastar have a couple of product lines, and we're having some more business we're having some more business other than telephone system. Of course, they are also operated by individual teams. So, well, but we can share the same telephone resources because, well, let's be honest, we are one company, and we are having um, we are having uh, same we're working in same offices, so well, it's natural that we use same network telephone resources. So, but we want to have one number. We have one, even though we use same trunk, we want to use different numbers for different business, for different operations. Like, for example, our major operation running by our major team, our telecommunication system. Uh, well, we got the major number of these trunks. Well, we can also buy a DID trunk from the service by DID number in the same trunk for the for the other business, for the other brand. And so we will have we will have individual numbers, even though we use the same trunk. Well, of course, there are other ways to use the DID number, but we're going to be talking about this right now. So the first thing we need to be sure about is the DID number. So we have to make sure that we indeed purchased this service. Once again, the DID number has to be purchased from a service provider. It's not something that you can that we can make out. It's not something that we can make. This is very important. So Let's say now we have DID, a bunch of DID numbers, and we want to use them for different purpose. So let's say um, uh, sorry, let's say our DID number is 5503302. Okay, so this is one DID number that we acquire from the service provider, and what we want to do here is to attach it to our destination, to one destination. So in the name we want to define it as the DID, and we need to choose a trunk. This trunk has to be the trunk with which you get the DID service. So in most cases, it can be a E1 line or a BRI line, or a SIP trunk. This is um, very common. So okay, now we choose the SIP trunk. This is where we get the DID service. Okay, and now we define the destination. We got a lot of options. So we can assign one extension to this number. So this means this DID number will be attached to this specific extension. So anybody who call this DID number will be directly sent to this extension 1004. No. This will ignore the limitation of your inbound routes rules. It will be sent directly to this extension. But the thing is, this is a quite normal way to use a DID number. I'm not saying it's wrong, but it's not that usual. It's not that common. In most people would want this DID number to attach, for example, to a specific team, like your sales team, right? So we want to let's say we want to have this number especially for the international sales team. So what we need to do here is to attach this DID number to a bunch of extensions. Now I know you are thinking about ring groups. Yes, we can indeedly do that. We can go to the destination. We choose ring group, and here we find the sales ring group that we have already made in the PBX in this PBX. If you want to know how to configure a ring group, then you can actually move back to our. You can actually check out the videos of our trainings on the more basic level configuration here. So now we have chosen sales. So that means this SIP trunk that comes with a major number, whatever that is. But if any other people who make a phone call to our system through this DID number that we get from the service provider who give us this trunk, then this call will be directly sent to the sales group. So that make this DID number specifically for the sales for the sales team. And of course, we have other options, right? So we can have like for example queue. Queues are made for more efficiently handle incoming calls. That means, well, if you have a lot of incoming calls, well, you might want to use queue instead of a ring group. And as all of you guys know our system pretty well, it comes pretty natural actually. So here we choose a queue. So yeah. Now we attach this DID number to this queue, so people will be dialing in through this number and reach to this queue, the technical support team queue, directly. Okay, this is actually, according to our experience, this is a quite a normal, quite popular way to use your DID number. But there are some other options, and I want to talk about that. You can actually have a lot of DID numbers. You can have, like for example, if you have E1 line, you can buy as much as 30 DID numbers. So what we can do here is, well, if the DID numbers that you have is continuous, you know, we can let's also take this as an example. What we can do here is to set a DID pattern range and put in the number here, the first number and the last number of this continuous DID number. Okay, so now we have 30 DID numbers configured right here. And what we need to do here is to set an extension, a group of extensions here to attach to those DID numbers. So we need to set extension range. So all we need to do is to put in 30 continuous extension number, like this. Okay, so now we have 30 DID numbers with continuous number and 30 continuous extension numbers. So now we have attached them one by one individually. So that means the 5503302 is attached to the extension number 1000, and the 5503323 is attached to 1001. So we have this. Now we have attached all 30 DID numbers to all those 30 extension numbers. So we can have all of those extensions have its own DID number, and when a call was sent in, the call can be directly sent by the PBX to the very extension number, the extension that has been assigned to this DID number. Okay, this is what DID basically do. So as you can see here, I want to conclude by repeating the important points here. Firstly, we need to make sure that we have actually purchased the DID service, and then we need to put in the DID number here. We need to make sure that the trunk selected right in this selected field is the trunk with which comes the DID number. And of course, in destination, we have many choices. We can choose to assign your DID number to one specific extension or to the extension range. That means one by one to all extensions. And of course, you can attach the DID number to ring group, to queue. This way, people who dial this number can directly go to the ring group, and instead of having to go through all the IVRs, all the and all the other stuff. And of course, if you have DID number, as I have said, like for example, your company have different businesses, and they run their own individual business in different brand name. You can always choose different IVR for one as destination of different DID number, of course. So this way, you can use one trunk actually for multiple operations, and they will have their own individual number, and you can also have them have the callers here, getting to different IVR that you set for different groups. So you can actually be totally creative over the ID settings, and well, a lot of things can actually be uh, realized by this. Once we're done, we can click save. Okay, so now we have covered the DID numbers and the DID callings. And well, I believe you have already mentioned, you have already noticed that here we have also a caller ID pattern. Well, just as the caller ID, just as the dial pattern in the outbound call routes, the caller ID pattern here actually defined which numbers will be handled according to this rule. So let's take well, let's say, oh, now we have two inbound routes. We have two inbound routes here, and we can just keep them, and we add another special rules for special number. Okay, so let's put one number. Okay, let's put. Okay, let's say one number. Let's make a special inbound routes for manager to use the DISA feature. Okay, you know about DISA already. We've been talking about this in our basic configuration. Here you can actually put the caller ID pattern here. So the way to set a caller ID pattern is exactly like how you set dial pattern, but we can define a specific number here. So that means if this number, well, of course, in this example, is the number of the manager. Okay, so this guy can call into our usual trunk, this trunk, and be delivered directly to DISA. Okay, so this means, well, you know what DISA do. You all know what does DISA do. So, well, with these features, they can actually the callers, your employees or anybody who know about your rules can take advantage of your company local trunks to make outbound calls, even though they are not physically in the company. This is a well, if you do not get network interface network access, you don't have access to internet. Well, with your mobile phone, this is a very good way for you to make phone calls with company trunks. And not everybody in the company can have this authority. So here we set the caller ID pattern. So this means only the numbers, only the callers with only the callers with the caller ID that match the pattern we have set right here can go through this trunk to reach DISA. So, well, there is also another condition, is that you have to make sure that the trunk you are using here comes with the caller ID feature. Well, this is also caller ID is also a service. It's optional. You can buy it from the service provider, and we strongly suggest you buy this if you want to use any caller ID related features. Here in this example, the caller ID pattern. So that means if you don't get the service, the service provider won't send the caller ID to you through the trunk. Before along with the incoming calls. So that means if you don't have that, the system won't be able to identify the caller ID because, well, there are no information. So, well, this feature cannot be triggered. So this is actually very important. This is caller ID pattern, and as I have said, you can be very creative over caller ID patterns in the inbound routes. What we have done there is a special routes directly for the managers to use DISA function. But we can also use this to ban some numbers that we don't want to deal with. For example, there are a lot of numbers that that do that do telemarketing, and they try to make try to make sales over telephones. They mainly use they sell like real estate, like stocks, insurances. You might get you might get annoyed by that, and a lot of those companies will use special numbers that bought from service provider. So those numbers will actually there are rules with those numbers, because that's special numbers. Like for example, in China, these kinds of numbers usually starts with 400. Okay. So what we do here is we put in 400, putting a dot. You know what that means? That means all numbers that starts with 400 and followed by other numbers. No limitation yet. There has to be other numbers followed follow the 400. Okay, so we can actually put in 400, and here in destination, if we want to politely refuse the call, right, we can just directly drop it to a voicemail, and we can actually create one extension specifically for this kind of purpose, and this can be a phantom extension. You don't have to register any phone to it, and you just drop it directly to the voicemail. So yeah, everything can be very. You can politely reject all those calls that you don't want to receive. You can also do. There are some other things you can do. You can just directly hang up the phone, of course, even though that's not very good. And you can actually, if you want to, you can even set a special IVR for that, indicating that nobody is actually in the company, or things, or whatever reason you want to give to reject a phone call, and record it in the IVR, play it, and it can be very useful. We have some experience on that, of course. So this is caller ID. So this is caller ID pattern, and some interesting way to use the destination options that you can have. And there is actually something that we want to be talking about. So we have been talking about DID numbers, and we've already introduced DISA, and I think that in inbound routes, the destination can be another outbound routes. That means calls get into the system can be sent out through another trunk, or through other outbound routes. And DISA also do basically the same thing, but with DISA you can have second phase dial. That means you can dial the real destination number to make phone calls to other numbers. But there is a problem. Sometimes you want to resend your call to another number, but you don't want the caller to know about it. Okay, this is very understandable. In many occasions, you want to resend the call to another number, to an outside number, not in a destination, but another outside number. It can be, like either your cell phone or anything else, but you don't want the callers to know. So, DISA won't do it. DISA is mainly for the internal employees of a company to use your internal trunks to make outbound calls when they are not in the office. And inbound to outbound also won't do it, because the outbound route will only point out a route for you to send out the call. So it can be a service provider, because with this feature, that means the numbers you dialed will be because this feature will give you only one time chance to dial a number. So that means the number dialed has to be this number, and it will be sent out with this number. So it won't make much sense under these circumstances. And inbound to outbound route is mainly used when you are connecting two PBX together. But we will be on that in our webinar in the future. But here, as I have said, if you want to resend the incoming calls to another destination and do not let the caller know, you can actually choose extension, right? So, as I have said, this extension can be a phantom extension, meaning, well, you have a couple of extensions to spare. You are not using up all the extensions that you have that you can use in your PBX system. All you need to do is to create a brand new extension and do not register anything to this extension. You do not register a IP phone. You do not register a soft phone to this extension number. So this is exactly what we call a phantom number, a phantom extension here, right? And you can just set the call forwarding and send it directly to a custom number, right? Directly to a custom number. So anybody who, oh sorry, I haven't put in any number yet. Okay. So anybody who make outbound calls to so people who made phone calls through these trunks will be resent to will be dropped to this very extension, and this extension is a phantom extension, as we have explained. No real user is in. All we need to do is to resend it to a outside number through call forwarding. And here, once again, you can define the caller ID pattern. So if this guy here make a phone call through this trunk, then he will be directly sent to this extension, which is a phantom, and be resent to an outside number. Okay, pretty cool, right? For any reason, if you want to use these features, you can totally do that, you know. And well, here we can give them a name. We can name it like as forward. Okay, good. Once again, the reason why we need to do this is because even though we have a few destinations options here where we can resend incoming calls to other phone system, it won't match the circumstances that we are having right here, because, well, once again, inbound to outbound only offer you one call routing. So that, and the DISA also call routing, so you don't get a second dial. So, well, you will have to know the number that you are dialing, which means inbound to outbound is basically used in when you connect two PBX together. And DISA, well, you have to do second phase dial, and that means the caller has to know that they were being resent, and they have to know where they want to be resent and know the number they actually be sent to, and they have to dial this number. So once again, DISA and inbound to outbound are mainly used for employees, not for the not for the callers, outside callers, to be more precisely. So this is our option here: phantom extension with call forwarding. Okay. Now we need to move on. Now we have been talking about inbound routes, and okay, let's click save to have this inbound routes set. Okay, so now we have outbound. Now let's move to outbound routes. With outbound routes, we have basically covered everything that we have to say about outbound routes. You all know what outbound routes are for. As you can see here, we have international routes that is especially for international phone calls made by authorized extensions, and have domestic phone calls routes. But there are but sometimes you have numbers that just do not match those two uh, patterns. Well, you can plan a thing very carefully, but special occasions will come up sometimes. So you have to make sure, even though the calls sent do not match the two routes you have set right here, you still want them to pass and be sent to the proper destination. So we can have a backup outbound call routes. And we do not make any patterns in the dial pattern, so no rules are attached once they were sent, and it can be function accordingly. But we choose trunks with which we want to make outbound calls, and we choose only the extensions that can make outbound calls. So that means, they can make outbound calls. Technically speaking, they are allowed to make outbound calls, but sometimes if they dial a number that do not match the international rules and domestic rules, we don't know what that number is, but we want to make sure that the call will be sent out. We include all of them, and we click save. And we need to make so this means our backup outbound routes has been made, and any phone calls made by those allowed extensions can be sent out one way or another. But we need to make sure that the order of the routes has to be correct. So we may need to make sure the backup route has to be put at the bottom of this list, so it will be picked last. Okay. There are still some other situations. So let me tell you a very a story. It's very unlikely, very unfortunate, but it can happen. So imagine that there is a company, and the owner of the company has installed our S-Series PBX, and people are working overtime at night. Like people are working overtime at night in the office, and this guy has an heart attack. He need to call 911. He need help, but he don't actually have his extension don't actually have authority to make outbound calls. So that means if he pick up a phone and call 911, this call won't pass, and he is in real danger. So we need a mechanism for this kind of situation. So this is why we have emergency number. This is actually can be found in the PBX. You click add. So the emergency number is actually quite easy to understand. Firstly, you put in the number. Here we put in 911. Okay, this is the emergency number. And we define through which trunk do we want to send out the 911. We strongly suggest that you use E1 line, because any E1 lines you have comes with 30 concurrent calls, and that's really suitable for this kind of extension. But just to be safe, we can have all the trunks selected. All the trunks. Yes, we can have all the trunks selected here, and you can really make sure that the call can be sent out, right? So, but it's not enough. Because the calls have to be sent out through the even though they are sent out through the trunks, but they have to actually match the dial pattern rules in the outbound calls. So yes, they have to. If there are a prepend required, then of course it has to be dialed. But under this kind of circumstances, people in danger, he's having a heart attack. It's pretty understandable if he forget to dial the prepend, the prefix, right? the prefix, right? So here in prepend, you can actually add the prefix that is required in the core in the outbound routes. Let's say at 9, so you can actually put it right here. So that means when people not dial 911, the call will be sent out with a 9 added automatically in front. So we have make sure that they can just directly dial 911 and the call will be sent out without any problem at all. Okay. Well, we're not over yet. We're not finishing here yet. So what we want to explain is with major emergency number rules, no matter um, which extensions who the extensions are, even it doesn't matter if they are included in any of those outbound routes rules, as long as they dial the emergency number that you have defined here, the call will be sent out. And the system will try all the trunks that you have configured right here. If no trunks if there is even even one trunk one available trunk, the system will pick up a random trunk and drop whatever call that is ongoing for this at this moment, and send out the emergency number, the emergency call. So yes, this is our emergency number mechanism, and we can also do notification. That means if somebody make an emergency call from the telephone system, a notification will be sent to this specific extension, or you can add more people to receive this kind of notifications. This will be made through voice prompt. So that means those extensions will receive a phone call made by the PBX, and will hear the PBX will play a voice prompt indicating them that somebody has made a emergency number with your telephone system, and of course the extension number of these people. Okay. So this is emergency number, and the reason why we talk about it, the reason why we talk about it is, well, even though it's not exactly necessary in many cases, but it's quite important. Um, it's something that you have to have that you might never use, but we put it right here, so well, you can have a peace in mind that we do have this function, and your client who buy our system can use this function. Okay. Um, and well, another thing I want to talk about is autoclip. Um, Autoclip is actually something quite original, and mm, we're a little proud of this little feature. So I want to firstly take a few minutes to explain to you what autoclip is. So basically, autoclip is a mechanism where the PBX will keep a record of all incoming calls, and if like let's say for example, um, well, you are running a little call center, and let's say you do telemarketing. You make you make calls to your customers to try to sell, well, let's say insurance, or uh, or financial investment products, things like that. Um, you make telemarketing, and with those things, with this feature, you have to use your company phone, because, well, of course, company will keep a recording of all your phone calls, right? Um, let's say you make a phone call to one of your customer, and you introduce to him about your company, about your products. Let's say your insurance. Um, that's a big investment. Naturally, your customer will say, "Okay, yes, I will think about it, and I'll get back to you on that." So he will hang up the phone, right? The problem is, okay, maybe in a couple of hours he decide to eventually buy your insurance, and when he tried to call back, as you are using the company telephone system to make this call, the number he has on his cell phone will be the trunk number. So this means he might never be able to reach to you to you again, right? He will be dropped to a random extension by the system or to another people, right? So that means you might lose this business because, well, people, uh, well, there will be another guy, and he may have to explain to this guy. Your customer may have to explain to this new guy what kind of product he want or which insurance he want, and well, it can be very troublesome, and he can just give up. And if he get tired to it, yeah, he will give up in any minute. So this is very bad. And let's say, um, so when this kind of situation, when this kind of with this kind of situation, you would want that when this customer call you back, this call can be directly sent to your very own extension who make the original phone call, right? And of course, let's say this. Um, your customer make a phone call to your company, try to reach to you, but you are not there, right? You're not there. You cannot make. You cannot answer him. So he hang up, with nobody answering his call, and in a few hours he tries to call back. Um, you would hope that his call can be directly reached to you, right? So yes, this is what AutoClip do. So sometimes when you want to make sure that when your customers or when people call back to you, this call will be directly sent to your own extension or to the extension who make the original phone call. So this is what AutoClip is mainly about. What we do here is, well, with AutoClip we keep a we will record we will keep record we will record we will keep a record of all incoming calls and outgoing calls, and well, if will the other side call you back, then this call will be sent directly to you. Okay, now let's see. What we do. What do we have here? Okay, so firstly, we want to define trunks that you want to enable these features. So that if we have actually we have chosen actually those three trunks. So that means only only if you make outbound calls through those three trunks can you trigger the auto clip. So all calls all calls sent out through these three trunks will be recorded in the auto clip list, and the system will try to match it to see when the callee is called back. Okay, and here we have a few options. Here we have only keep missed call records. So that means if you made the phone call through those trunks and the callees actually pick up and answer it, then this record won't be kept in the auto clip list. And if this guy call back, the auto clip won't be triggered and reach to you specifically. And of course, here we have delayed used records. That means if the records has been used, then it will be delayed. So that means the auto clip will only apply once. And well, of course, you can choose to enable or disable it. And here we have record keep time. So that means how long will the system keep the record. So let's put in 3 weeks. So that means within if the callers call back within 3 weeks, then this call will be sent directly to your extension. And here we have match outgoing trunk. So that means only if the caller callbacks with the trunk with the trunk that you call him, will autoclip be triggered. Otherwise, no autoclip. So here, what we have here is are ways for you to more efficiently decide either if you want to use these features here. Okay, so this is auto clip. Actually, it's very easy to set up. All you need, or if you want to check if or what record do you have, you can just click on auto clip list. Here you will see a list of all the outgoing calls that match the condition and has to be recorded and wait to be matched when callbacks coming. Okay, so this is auto clip, and I think that's pretty much everything that we want to talk about for today's webinar. As I have said, it's it's not a long webinar. All we need to do is to keep you informed about more advanced configuration that you can do in our S-Series PBXs to realize more controls over the incoming and outgoing calls. And we will be continue our webinar, and webinar tomorrow. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much for your participation. If you have any question, any doubts, please tell me.